Hello friendos and randos, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be showing an OP06 deck profile for Vinsmoke Reiju, one of the new OP06 leaders, focusing around the Vinsmoke family Germa 66 archetype. So this deck I've been playing for a bit. It's really fun. I've been trying to adjust it for the post ST13 meta, but it does struggle a little bit now into the new leaders. But it is a really strong deck for the early 06 meta. I think it has a good matchup into both Moria as well as Yellow and Sakazuki. It really is very dependent on what you do draw though, but let me go through it with you real quick. So the core of the deck is very simple. It revolves around the Germa characters. So that would be all of the different Vinsmoke family characters. First of all, of course, we have number 1, Ichiji, the Red Ranger, per se. So we have both him as well as the smaller version of him at 4 copies. He's one of the very key cards of the deck. Before that, let's go through Reiju's leader effect. I realized I didn't go through that yet. So first off, Reiju's leader effect is during your turn, once per turn, when you return Dawn from your board to your Dawn deck, draw 1 card. So very simple effect, but it really synergizes with the rest of your character effects, and let's go into more detail with that soon. So all of the Germa 66 characters have a henshin or transformation mechanic where they can become the suited up versions of themselves from like their civilian clothes. So let's talk about Ichiji first. Ichiji's civilian and all of their civilian effects basically are Dawn times 1. You may send this character to the trash, and then after that you may play the bigger version of the character from your hand or from your trash and put it on your board basically. So all of these Dawn times 1 effects allow you to draw 1 card with your leader effect, so that synergizes well here. And because you can take cards from your trash, you also get hand advantage in that way, because then you can keep reusing characters from here instead of having to just draw new copies of the same character. So even if you draw just one of the correct character, that's enough a lot of times, unless you're against like a blue deck with bottom tech abilities. So the ability of the effect of 7 cost Ichiji is Dawn times, on play, if you have the same or less Dawn than your opponent, give up to one of your opponent's characters minus 2000 power for the turn, and then this character gains Rush. So it's kind of like Ace, the 7 cost Rush Ace, but a slightly weaker version. So one of the other interesting things about Germa's mechanics are they kind of copy the respective colors that they are borrowing from. So the Red Ranger has red mechanics, Rush, and power reduction. So Ichiji is really strong, especially if you can get him out on the 4 Dawn turn. If you have him in your hand or in your trash because of another character or your stage effect. So that's really powerful as well, because 7 cost 7k is actually a pretty difficult line to get rid of. Next ranger we have is Niji, the Blue Ranger. So we're running 3 copies of the small Niji and then 4 copies of the big Niji. So I won't be going through all of the individual like civilian character effects, so I'll just talk about the henshin transformed versions. So Niji's effect is if you have the same or less Dawn than your opponent, choose one of the following effects: KO one of your opponent's 2 cost characters, or return one of your opponent's 4 cost characters to hand. So this is a really good card in the OP06 meta because of Moria, Sakazuki, and Yellow all running a lot of different 4 cost characters. One super notable character is Kikunojo. Being able to return Kikunojo to hand is really powerful because it denies the heal, as well as if they do want to play the Kiku back down, it is 4 Dawn, which is really quite a big investment as well. Not only that, it's a very good tempo play. So if you were to play the small Niji to transform into big Niji on your 5 Dawn turn, you can return anything back to hand, which is really good. Next character we have is Yonji. Yonji is the Green Ranger. So he has his effect is very simple. If your board has less Dawn or the same number of Dawn as your opponent, this character gains 1000 power. So he's effectively a 6k blocker. Generally, even if you play him on 4 Dawn and you haven't done any Dawn minus yet, your opponent will add 2 Dawn at the start of their turn. So he's instantly active the moment you play him down. We're only playing 1 and 2 copies of Yonji respectively because he's not as key of a card as the rest of the Rangers, but he does still see some purposes, especially in like the Yamato matchup, and he can come in clutch if you just need to have it. Next we have the 4 cost Reiju, one of the best purple cards in OP06. Effect is, if you have the same number or less Dawn than your opponent, then you can, and you also have 5 cards or less in your hand, then you draw 2 cards. So this applies, the character applies before your leader draw, which is really good as well. So for example, if you were to have 5 cards in your hand, and then you play down small Reiju to henshin into the big Reiju, you would be able to draw from 5 to 8 cards. So you will draw 2 from the big Reiju, and then you will draw 1 from your leader effect, which is really good. So this is the core of the Germa deck, basically, with one addition as well. We also have the 8 cost Judge. Judge's effect is, on play, Dawn -1, you discard 2 cards, and then you can play down one of each Germa 66 character with 4k power or less with a unique name. So you can play down all 4 of the siblings, and then after that you can do the respective transformations into the big versions. And his secondary effect, which a lot of people actually forget, and it comes in actually pretty handy, is activate main once per turn. Dawn -1, you can rest one of your opponent's active Dawns. So you can deny things like Eltor, Radical Beam, or any other like counter events that people may be running. So this is generally the core characters that you'll be running in the Germa deck. Some people are running more Yonji, some people are running 0 Yonji, but this is what you will mainly be seeing. And then the rest of your deck is just kind of ways to enable you to reach the state where you can have all of these characters in your hand or in your trash or on your board. So first up on that front is, of course, the most important card is the one called Germa Kingdom Stage. This stage's effect is you may discard 1 card, activate main, you may discard 1 card from your hand and rest this stage, then look at the top 3 cards of your deck and pick 1 Germa Kingdom type character. Sorry, and you may pick 1 Germa type card from those 3 cards. So you can pick any of the brothers, of course, as well as any of the of Judge. You can even pick up the stage itself. You can also pick up this Searcher event, Germa 66. Germa 66 effect is, look at the top 5 cards of your deck and pick a card with the type with Germa and its types other than this event itself. So this event can't grab it, like you can't grab another one, you can't grab another copy of this Germa 66 event with this event. But generally this card is used to search for the stage if you don't have it, or to just grab one of your pieces, so that's you're generally fine. Okay, and then next we have a bunch of 2k counters. So first off we have Vinsmoke Sora. So Sora's effect is, on play, discard 1 card from your hand. If you have the same amount or less Dawn on your board than your opponent, then you may grab one of the 4000 power or less Vinsmoke family type character cards from your trash to your hand. So you can grab any one of the smaller siblings basically. So very good cycle. So you can do something like play down Sora, drop the big Red Ranger, and then grab the small Red Ranger, and then play it down and then transform and everything. So pretty good 2k counter. It's also searchable off of both of these, so that's great. Next we have Kaya. Very strong 2k counter as well. Kaya's effect is, of course, on play, draw 2 and discard 2 cards. So you can use this to cycle to look for your stage. You can also use it to put the large rangers in your trash so that you can set up for the transformation sequence. And lastly, we also have Double Finger. So Double Finger is pretty good. On play, you may discard 1 card to get 1 Dawn as rested. So one really strong line is on your 5 Dawn turn, you can play down Zala and then drop a card to ramp to 8, and then next turn you can play down Judge, and since Judge already puts you at 7 Dawn, when you transform again you will be at 6, which is the same as your opponent, assuming of course you're not playing like the Purple Mirror or anything like that. And then that will allow you to transform everything and still receive all of the different effects. On top of that, it does of course have 2k counter, and the trigger is Dawn ×1, you may play down this card, which is also really good, especially against Sakazuki. Sometimes emergency body trigger is really good too, because they don't expect it, and now you have one more attack that they didn't kind of see coming. Okay, lastly for 2k counters, we also have one Gum Gum Rain, 0 cost event. The effect of this card is discard 1 card from your hand and then give up to one of your leaders or characters plus 3000 power. So some lists were running Gavel, Gum Gum Gavel, which was the 1 cost, discard 1 card and then give your leader 4k power, but I like Rain a little bit better because it does have the ability to defend your characters as well, whereas Gavel can only be used on your leader. On top of that, you can turn your EGGs or judges or stages even into counter, which sometimes you get these cards out of your last 2 lives or whatever, and then you are short or counter. So this is a really nice way to kind of circumvent that. And then the last 2 cards I am running are firstly 5 Cost Queen from Starter Deck 4. Its effect is, of course, on play on -1, draw 2 cards and then discard 1 card. So this is very useful when it comes to your leader effect because you also get to draw that additional card after you finish your draw 2 and discard 1. So notably, you are supposed to finish the draw 2 discard 1 before you can draw another card with your leader effect. And then the last card we are running is 2 copies of the new OP06 4-cost pudding. 4-cost pudding is really strong as a kind of screw with your opponent, reduce their hand size as well as mess up their plans, whatever they were planning to do in the next couple of turns, because you are resetting whatever they had in mind and whatever plans, especially if, for example, they had like use searchers to find things, like find specific combo pieces or whatnot. You can really mess with them by dropping this pudding card. One of my favorite experiences, of course, is getting someone to drop 6 cards from an 11 size hand to a 5 card hand with the pudding. Really powerful card when you get to time it correctly and use it like to its fullest potential. Otherwise, it does still have counter, so it's not a bad card, and you do have ways to cycle with both the stage, Sora, as well as Queen. All in all, this is basically the gist of the deck profile for Reiju. Now I'm going to quickly cover like the general curve you can expect to play around and play with when you're looking at Reiju. Generally, as Reiju, you do want to go second in order to get the additional chance to draw your stage, and your mulligan criteria is very simple. If you don't have stage, generally you will mulligan. So this stage is really one of the key cards in the Reiju deck and is something that you're always trying to look for. Other good hands include Kaya, the Searcher event, as well as 1 set of a ranger, and the best rangers to have sets for are red, blue, and pink. So any combination of this is pretty good as a starting hand. But because as long as you have the stage, you can find the respective pieces, generally I do mulligan for the stage instead. So the general curve for the deck is going second, you want to do stage and then event. And then on your 4 Dawn turn, you want to do either of these into the larger versions, of course. And after you've done that, generally you will be on 5 Dawn. Generally, you just want to cast Niji Hut without using the baby version because you don't want to keep reducing your Dawn or you won't be able to use Judge's effect. The 7 Dawn turn is most flexible, but generally you want to be able to transform 1 time, use 1 Dawn minus effect. So you're either going to be doing like, so maybe you're going to do draw into transform blue into another big blue. And then this will set you up nicely for your 8 Dawn turn, which is almost always going to be Judge. So this is the general curve that you're trying to look for. Of course, it's not going to be every game where you draw everything on curve. So that's why we also have cards like Queen and Pudding to play down on these turns where you don't have the right pieces on curve. So Queen lets you set up your Dawn minus, as well as of course lets you cycle through more cards to look for your stage, especially if you haven't gotten it yet. And then we also have Kaya and the Searcher event. We also have Kaya and the Searcher event in order to help you with hitting that stage. So really the stage is one of the most crucial parts of this deck because it allows you to get that hand advantage. Since you can play down the Reiju, you can play down all of the larger rangers from the trash as well. You want to really be looking for those pieces with that. In terms of search priority, we're also looking to really get your red rangers as much as possible. So this is the general flow for like the going second curve. Of course, if you do go first, it does adjust slightly. So going first, you still want to do either the stage or the Searcher event. Of course, ideally it would be the stage. And then you want to go transform on 3 to play down your Reiju in order to build your hand. Once you've done that, you won't be able to play down the 5-cost Niji from hand directly. So sometimes you may choose to forego this, and even if you're playing against a deck without a lot of removal, for example, you can even just drop the 3-cost Niji to set up for your 5 Dawn turn. So let's say it's 4 or 5 Dawn this turn. So if you do end up playing the small Niji, you can go ahead and drop a Reiju along with the transforming your small Niji into a big Niji. Alternatively, if you only have that 4 Dawn, you can also just drop the Reiju if you have not enough hand, like if you meet the 5 hand card requirement, or you can transform your Red Ranger into the big Red Ranger as well. So there's a lot of different lines of play when you're going first, but generally I try to only transform one time so I can still get judged down on the 9 Dawn turn, which would be 2 turns after this. So of course you go 6 and then 8. So on 6, generally I would just drop the Niji. If not, I would drop Pudding, or I would drop Yonji even. And then on 8, I would still try to drop Judge. So the goal is really try to get the Judge out as soon as you can. So that would usually be turn number 5. But alternatively, you can always just, if you don't draw Judge, or you have a lot of the Red Rangers and you don't have all of the little, like the small Rangers to call down, you can always just spam the Ichiji down and play multiple of him, and then just keep going face with the 7-cost 7k rush unit. It's really, really powerful, and it also lets you clear board simply, since it does have that -2 effect to it too, and lets you attack with your other units like your Reiju and your Nijis and make that even more potent as well. So generally, this is how you can expect like Reiju gameplay to go around. And the most key thing when it comes to Reiju is really about making sure that you sequence your things correctly. So one key thing is, example, making sure that you really hit that 5 cards in hand before you play your 4-cost Reiju. So if you're going to transform something, you should play down the Reiju first, and then after that you can transform something after. So for example, something like Reiju and then you cast the baby blue, rather than using blue and then playing the Reiju after. Sometimes you would put yourself at 6 hand and then this Reiju wouldn't be able to draw. Other than that, I also prefer to drop the Reiju before I use my Stages effect. So in case I draw no counter cards with the Reiju, I want to be able to discard them after. And then lastly is making sure that when you are setting up for your Judge turn, you make sure you have all of the correct pieces in your trash. So you have the small versions of the Rangers as well as the big versions either in your hand or in your trash as well. So Judge does allow you to discard too, so that's one important thing. The other thing to note is that most important is that you cannot draw the card before you do the discard 2 with Judge. So generally you want to make sure you discard the small Rangers first if you don't have the small Rangers in your trash, because later when you draw cards with the Judge effect from your Dawn -1 as well as with the Reiju, for example, if you didn't have the big red or the big blue in your trash yet, you can draw them from this like draw 3 card effect, and then after that you can still play the big blue and big red from your hand. So that makes things still doable, especially if you don't have the big versions of the characters yet, but you must have the small ones in trash to call down with the Judge, like when Judge is played onto the board. So Judge turn sequencing is usually very straightforward as well. You want to attack with whatever is on the board that will get replaced, and then after that you call down the Judge and then call down the various the Rangers accordingly. Generally, I do transform the pink first, just to get the card draw, and then after that blue to bounce any blockers if needed, and then red in order to reduce board, and then attack whatever board with my leader, and then attack with the big red if I also need to, if it's still not dead. If there's no blockers, I do try to keep the blue on the board until the end, especially against decks with like yellow triggers, for example, that can KO 5 cost. If I can save that Dawn -1 and there's nothing on the board to KO or return to hand, then I don't transform it until like after I'm done attacking. Other than that, you can also consider leaving it on the board like that in order to just bounce a blocker the next turn, but this is a very situational choice, because if your opponent sees the Blue Ranger just sitting there, they may not like even play the 4-cost blocker that they were intending to play, or the 4-cost unit they're intending to play. And of course, just having that bigger unit is also pretty important at times. Another thing I want to let everyone know is that you can also do consecutive judges if you don't transform everything. Against some decks, it may actually be better to, for example, if you're on 8 Dawn turn, calling down all of the small rangers. You don't have to transform all of them. Sometimes just red or just pink is enough, and then you can play down another judge next turn, because you're only going Dawn -2 instead of Dawn -4 or whatever. But this really depends on the matchup, as well as like how comfortable you feel with waiting one turn to get that big board and pay off. But I think this is actually a very strong board already for 8 Dawn. Like if you were just to play Judge, call down the small red ranger and then transform it into the big one, this alone is pretty good on the 8 Dawn play. You also get to draw 2, which is really strong. So this is a pretty good setup for your next turn, where you just play another Judge and then you can call down like 3 of them instead. So you have 2 judges on the board. I can't find my second judge. So you could have it like that, and then you can call the second judge down on the board. Sorry. Yeah. You can call the second judge down on the board, call down the red again, and then transform accordingly, or call red and pink. And once you transform this red, you can even attack with the blue into a 5k unit because of the -2, and then transform this. So this is a possible line that I don't really see a lot of people do, but it's definitely something that can be done if you have that, I guess, restraint, as well as maybe you're missing certain pieces in your trash is also an option. So judge into judge again on the following turn. I think this is a lot of potential to be a really strong combination, and it's something that I'm trying to build towards for the new OP6.5 meta, especially with the new ST13 leaders. I think that combo would be very dangerous against, especially since they are all pretty low on removal. So I think dropping consecutive 8+7 would be very difficult for them. But I am trying this out, just trying to figure it out still. End of the day, I think this deck is really fun to play. I really enjoy the combos and the nature of the deck itself. It has a lot of like it reminds me a lot of Red Green Law in that sense, where you have a lot of different combo pieces and you do a lot of things every turn, and that makes it really fun kind of gameplay for me. And I really hope that you guys try out the deck and you find it just as fun as I have. Of course, the last thing is, as a big Tokusatsu fan, it's really fun to say Henshin when you transform the small characters into the big characters, and it's basically just the new word for effect here, just like how Shambles has become the Red Green Law leader effect kind of code word. Henshin is just what you say when when you transform the small ranger into the big ranger. So that being said, Reiju is a really fun deck. I really hope you guys give her a shot. Although she's not Sakazuki, she's not Moria, although she may not be the most direct or the straight up brute force strongest deck in the format, I think she's really strong. She won the first place at our Singaporean BCF, and I think it takes quite a bit of practice to kind of pilot her correctly. And of course, the deck is very reliant on drawing your stage as well as your individual pieces, and making sure that you draw like enough of the big and the small characters so that you can actually have an engine and get your tempo going. But when you do draw everything, it does feel nice, and there are enough tools in the deck to make it consistent enough across multiple games in a day at least. End of the day, I really enjoyed playing Reiju. I really hope you guys give it a shot as well. It's probably currently the other deck that I'm really testing a lot, other than Sakazuki, which I'm playing primarily for most of my standard battles and flagships and stuff. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video, friendos and randos, and I will see you guys again next time. Peace out.